While the lawyer read the will, the silence in the room was as heavy as the contempt in the heir's eyes. Evelina's cousins received fleets of private jets and private islands, but when her turn came, the lawyer placed a single silver dollar coin in her hand and spoke the words that seemed to seal her fate. "Your grandfather said this is all you deserve." The family's laughter echoed through the entire mansion, but what they didn't know, and what no one could predict, is that the billionaire was a master of riddles. In the next few minutes, you'll discover why that $1 coin was the only valuable thing in that room, and how in less than 24 hours, Evelina's cousins received eviction orders from the mansions they'd just inherited. What was hidden behind that small piece of silver wasn't just a fortune. It was the secret that proved none of them should have been there. Follow now the epic turnaround of Evelina Vance. If you love seeing arrogance destroyed by poetic justice, subscribe to this channel. Here we share stories that prove karma is real and the universe keeps perfect accounts. Hit that like button so this story reaches someone who needs to remember that those who mock others often dig their own graves. Because what Evelina inherited wasn't just wealth, it was the power to show her family that cruelty always has a price and payment always comes due. The reading of Victor Castellano's will was not a private, somber affair. It was a social event, carefully orchestrated by his 3 grandchildren, Julian, Marcus, and Sophia, who treated their grandfather's death as an opportunity for celebration rather than mourning. The Castellano mansion's grand library had been transformed into a spectacle. Catered food lined the sideboard, champagne chilled in silver buckets. Professional photographers circulated, capturing candid moments that would later be posted to social media with hashtags like legacy wealth and generational success. Evelina Vance sat in the back corner quietly as she always did. At 38, she was the outsider among the Castellano grandchildren, the daughter of Victor's estranged younger son who died young. While Julian, Marcus, and Sophia had grown up in mansions and private schools, Evelina had grown up in a modest apartment with her mother, seeing her grandfather only occasionally, until 10 years ago, when Victor had called her personally. "Evelina," he'd said in that gravelly voice that commanded empires, "I'm an old man who's made many mistakes. The biggest was not knowing you. Would you consider coming to live with me? Not as an employee or caretaker, but as family. Let me know my granddaughter before I die." Evelina had quit her engineering job and moved into Victor's private wing of the mansion. For 10 years, she'd been his companion, reading to him, playing chess, discussing philosophy and technology and the nature of legacy. She'd cared for him as he aged, but more importantly, she'd genuinely loved him, and he'd loved her back. When Victor died peacefully in his sleep 3 weeks ago at 87, Evelina had grieved deeply and genuinely. Julian, Marcus, and Sophia had grieved publicly and performatively, posting black and white photos with captions about a titan's legacy, while already planning how to split the empire. Now, as Dr. Tobias Aris, the family attorney for 40 years, prepared to read the will, the cousins were practically vibrating with anticipation. "Let's begin," Dr. Aris said, his voice cutting through the chatter. He was 65, silver-haired, impeccably dressed, and his expression gave away nothing. The will started predictably. To various charities and long-time employees, generous bequests. Then came the main event. "To my grandson Julian Castellano," Dr. Aris read, "I leave the Castellano Global Logistics Division, including all distribution centers, fleet vehicles, and associated infrastructure." Julian pumped his fist. "Yes, that's the crown jewel." He immediately pulled out his phone to post, "Honored to continue my grandfather's legacy. CEO da Logistics King." "To my grandson Marcus Castellano," Dr. Aris continued, "I leave the Castellano Manufacturing Division, including all factories, equipment, and production facilities." Marcus grinned and high-fived his brother. More phones emerged, more social media posts. "To my granddaughter Sophia Castellano, I leave the Castellano Real Estate Holdings, including all commercial properties, residential developments, and land assets." Sophia squealed and immediately FaceTimed someone. "I told you I'm a real estate mogul now." The 3 cousins celebrated loudly, popping champagne, taking selfies. The photographers captured it all. Then Dr. Aris pulled out a small brown envelope, simple and unmarked. "And to my granddaughter, Evelina Vance." The room went silent. All eyes turned to Evelina in her corner. She wore a simple black dress, the only mourning clothes she owned. No jewelry, except her grandfather's compass on a chain, which he'd given her years ago. Dr. Aris opened the envelope and removed a single silver dollar coin. He walked across the room and placed it in Evelina's hand. "Your grandfather said, 'This is all you deserve.'" The silence lasted exactly 3 seconds. Then Julian started laughing. Really laughing, doubled over, slapping his knee. $1, $1. He could barely get the words out. "The charity case gets $1. Marcus joined in, filming on his phone. "This is priceless. All those years sucking up to the old man and you get lunch money." Sophia walked over to Evelina, her expression mixing pity and contempt. "Sweetie, if you need to borrow money for a bus ticket, just ask. We're family, after all." Julian grabbed a bottle of red wine from the sideboard. He walked toward Evelina, swaying the bottle dramatically. "You know what? Let's toast to Evelina's big inheritance." He accidentally stumbled and the wine cascaded over Evelina's dress, staining the black fabric deep red. "Oh no," Julian said with mock horror. "I'm so sorry. But hey, at least now you can clean up. And with that $1 you can start your new career as a maid. It's the only way you'll make any real money now." The room erupted in laughter. Photographers captured Evelina standing there, wine-soaked, holding a single coin, the picture of humiliation. Dr. Aris's voice cut through the mockery. "The will also includes several stipulations regarding transition periods and property access. Evelina, you have 30 days to vacate the premises." 30 days? Julian interrupted. "No way. She leaves today. Right now. I'm not having the poor relative hanging around bringing down property values." "Julian, the will specifies—" "I don't care what it specifies. This is our house now, ours. She has 30 minutes to pack her stuff and get out." He turned to Evelina. "You heard me. 30 minutes. Take your $1 and leave." Evelina looked at Dr. Aris, silently pleading, but the attorney's expression remained neutral. "The property now belongs to the primary heirs. They have the legal right to establish residency rules." Evelina stood on shaking legs, the silver dollar clutched in her wine-stained hand. She looked around the library, the room where her grandfather had taught her chess, where they'd discussed philosophy, where he'd told her she was brilliant and valued and loved. "Tick-tock," Marcus said, tapping his watch. 29 minutes now. Evelina walked upstairs to the small room she'd occupied for 10 years. She grabbed a single photo, the only one she had of herself with Victor, taken on his 85th birthday, both of them laughing over a chessboard. Everything else she left behind. When she came downstairs 18 minutes later, Julian was waiting at the door. "Here," he said, shoving a trash bag at her. "Trash belongs in trash bags, right?" Evelina took the bag silently, placed the photo inside, and walked out the front door. It had started raining, a cold, miserable autumn rain. Evelina stood at the mansion's iron gates, watching her cousins inside through the windows, celebrating and drinking and planning their futures. She looked down at the silver dollar in her hand. On one side was the standard Liberty head. On the other, someone had engraved a single word in tiny letters. Believe. Evelina started crying. Not delicate tears, but deep, body-shaking sobs. 10 years with her grandfather. 10 years of love and companionship. And this was how it ended. Cast out like garbage, humiliated in front of strangers, worth exactly $1. She'd believed Victor loved her, but apparently she'd been wrong. As rain soaked through her wine-stained dress, Evelina pulled out her phone and searched for homeless shelters nearby. The closest one was 2 miles away. She'd have to walk. She took one step toward the street. Then a voice behind her said, "Miss Vance." Evelina turned. Dr. Aris stood under an umbrella, his expression finally showing something, a slight smile. "Your grandfather," he said, "was never a man who gave charity. He gave destinies. Please, get in the car." Dr. Aris's car was a sleek black Mercedes, warm and dry. Evelina sat in the passenger seat, still crying, still clutching the silver dollar and trash bag. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Why would he do this to me? I loved him. I thought he loved me." "He did," Dr. Aris said simply. "More than you know, more than anyone in that room could comprehend." "Then why—" "Patience, Miss Vance. Your grandfather was a master of chess. He taught you that, didn't he? The importance of seeing several moves ahead?" Evelina remembered countless games with Victor. He'd always insisted, "Think 3 moves ahead, 4 if you can. The best victories are the ones your opponent doesn't see coming until it's too late." "I don't understand what chess has to do with being humiliated and thrown out," Evelina said. Dr. Aris smiled. "Everything. Tell me, what do you know about your grandfather's business empire?" "He built Castellano Industries from nothing. Logistics, manufacturing, real estate, worth billions. And do you know how those businesses actually function? What makes them valuable?" Evelina thought about it. She'd been an engineer before moving in with Victor. She understood systems and infrastructure. The logistics division is valuable because of distribution networks and fleet assets. Manufacturing is valuable because of production capacity and equipment. Real estate is valuable because of location and development rights. Exactly. And your cousins now own all of that. So they win. They got everything. "They got assets," Dr. Aris corrected. "But assets are only valuable if they function. A factory that can't produce is worthless. A fleet that can't operate is worthless. Real estate that can't be developed is worthless." Evelina looked at him. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that your grandfather was a genius at separating appearance from substance. Your cousins own very impressive-looking businesses. But the question is, can those businesses actually operate?" Before Evelina could respond, Dr. Aris's phone rang. He answered on speakerphone. "Dr. Harris, this is Margaret from Castellano Global Logistics. I'm getting error messages across the entire system. The fleet management software is locked. The distribution routing is offline. I can't access any operational controls." Dr. Aris's expression didn't change. "I see. Have you contacted IT? They say the system is functioning perfectly. It's just locked. They don't have administrative access to unlock it." "Thank you, Margaret. I'll look into it." He hung up. 30 seconds later, the phone rang again. "Dr. Aris, this is Chen from manufacturing. We have a problem. All our production licenses have expired. I pulled up the renewals, but they're registered to a subsidiary company I can't find any records for. Without valid licenses, we can't legally produce anything." "I'll investigate. Thank you, Chen." Another call. "Dr. Aris, Sofia Castellano is calling every tenant in our commercial properties, demanding rent increases." "But the leases aren't in Castellano Real Estate's name. They're in some other entity's name, and the tenants are saying they only recognize that entity as their landlord." Dr. Aris ended the calls and looked at Evelina. "It's beginning." "What's beginning?" "The education of arrogance. Your cousins believe they inherited an empire. What they actually inherited were empty shells, pretty facades with nothing inside. But where's the actual value, the real control?" Dr. Aris turned onto a highway heading out of the city. "That, Miss Vance, is what I'm about to show you. Your grandfather spent 10 years preparing this. He wanted you to see it yourself, to understand the full scope of what you've actually inherited. But I inherited $1. "No," Dr. Aris said. "You inherited everything. That dollar is just the key." They drove for 3 hours, leaving the city far behind, climbing into mountains Evelina had never explored. The rain had stopped, and the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and purple. Finally, Dr. Aris turned onto an unmarked private road. They drove another 20 minutes through dense forest before emerging into a clearing, and there, illuminated by the dying sunlight, stood a mansion that took Evelina's breath away. It wasn't ostentatious like the Castellano family mansion. It was elegant, classical, beautiful, a European-style estate that looked like it had stood for centuries but was impeccably maintained. 3 stories of pale stone with tall windows, intricate ironwork, and gardens that, even in autumn, showed careful tending. "What is this place?" Evelina whispered. "This," Dr. Aris said, "is Castellano Estate, the real one. The one that doesn't appear on any public records, any tax documents, any maps. Your grandfather bought this property 40 years ago under a private trust. He's been maintaining it in secret ever since, waiting for the right heir. And that heir is... me? Read the coin again. Evelina looked at the silver dollar. The engraved word, believe. Your grandfather wanted you to believe in him, in yourself, in the idea that value isn't always visible to those who only see surfaces. He left you a test, Miss Vance, and you passed it simply by being who you are. Someone who loved him for himself, not for his money. Someone who stayed when there was no obvious reward. Someone who values people over possessions. Dr. Aris parked in front of the mansion's main entrance. The massive oak doors opened and a woman in her 60s stepped out. Elegant, professional, with kind eyes. "Miss Vance," she said warmly, "welcome home. My name is Catherine. I've been maintaining this estate for 30 years waiting for you." Evelina got out of the car slowly, still clutching her trash bag and silver dollar. "I don't understand. How can this be mine? How can any of this be real?" "Come inside," Catherine said. "Everything will become clear." The interior of the mansion was even more breathtaking than the exterior. While the Castellano family mansion had been all modern luxury and showing off, this place was timeless elegance. Rich wood paneling, crystal chandeliers, artwork that looked museum quality, and everywhere Evelina looked. Small, personal touches that made it feel like a home, not a showpiece. Catherine led them through the entrance hall to a grand library. Unlike the library where the will had been read hours ago, this one felt warm and alive. Thousands of books lined the walls. A fire crackled in an enormous stone fireplace. Comfortable leather chairs invited reading and contemplation. And on the walls were photographs, dozens of them. Evelina stepped closer and realized they were all of her, from childhood photos she'd never seen to recent ones she didn't remember being taken. Her with Victor laughing over chess, her reading in the garden, her cooking in the kitchen, a whole decade of her life documented and cherished. "He loved you very much," Catherine said softly. "He spent hours in this library, looking at these photos, talking about you, planning all of this." "But why the secret?" Evelina asked. "Why not just tell me? Why the humiliation with the $1? Dr. Aris stepped forward. "Because your grandfather understood human nature. He knew that Julian, Marcus, and Sophia were greedy and cruel. He knew they'd celebrate your loss and reveal their true characters publicly, and he knew that their arrogance would make them careless. But they got the businesses. They got businesses that can't function. Let me explain. Doctor." Aris pulled a folder from his briefcase. "Your grandfather was a genius at legal structures. The Castellano businesses your cousins inherited are real companies with real assets. But those companies don't actually own the intellectual property, the operational systems, the licenses, or the patents that make them valuable." He spread documents across the library table. "The logistics fleet software, owned by a separate entity. The manufacturing production licenses, owned by a separate entity. The real estate development rights, owned by a separate entity. And all those entities are wholly owned subsidiaries of a master holding company called Castellano Holdings." "And who owns Castellano Holdings?" Evelina asked, though she was beginning to understand. "Look at your coin again." Evelina examined the silver dollar more carefully. She noticed something she'd missed before, a tiny serial number engraved along the edge, CH-01, Castellano Holdings, certificate number 1. "Doctor," Aris explained, "that coin isn't currency, Miss Vance, it's a share certificate, the original and only share certificate for Castellano Holdings, which owns and controls every operational aspect of the empire your cousins think they inherited." Evelina sank into one of the leather chairs. "So they own empty companies?" "Worse than empty. They own companies with massive operational expenses and liabilities, but no actual ability to generate revenue without access to the systems and licenses controlled by Castellano Holdings, which you now own. How long can they survive? Without intervention? The logistics division will be unable to operate within a week once their current software licenses expire. Manufacturing can't produce without valid licenses, which expired yesterday. Real estate can't collect rent from tenants whose leases are actually with Castellano Holdings, not with the shell company your cousins inherited. I estimate they have perhaps 3 months before they're completely insolvent. Catherine poured tea for everyone. Your grandfather spent 40 years building this structure. He separated ownership from control long before your cousins were born. Everything they think they have is actually controlled from here, from this mansion, from the trust he established and left to you. Evelina felt overwhelmed. But I don't know how to run billion-dollar companies. I was an engineer. I quit to take care of Victor. You were a systems engineer, Dr. Aris corrected. You understand complex systems better than your cousins ever could, and you won't be running things alone. Your grandfather assembled a team of executives who've been managing the actual operations for years. They've been waiting to meet you. They know about me. They know that the real power in Castellano Industries has always been held by a private trust, and that the trust would pass to a chosen heir when Victor died. They don't know who you are yet, but they know you're coming. Evelina looked around the library, at the photographs, at the evidence of her grandfather's love and planning. He really thought of everything. Almost everything, Dr. Aris said. There's one more element you need to see, the final piece that makes all of this work. Come with me. He led Evelina to a large reading table in the center of the library. The table appeared to be carved from a single piece of stone, dark, polished, beautiful. In its center was a circular indentation, about the size of a silver dollar. Your grandfather, Dr. Aris said, was obsessed with security and symbolism. He wanted the transfer of power to be unmistakable and irreversible, so he created a biological lock. That coin you're holding isn't just a share certificate, it's a key, but it only works for the right person. What do you mean? Place the coin in the indentation. Evelina approached the table. She held the silver dollar over the circular depression. It was a perfect match. She set the coin down gently. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Evelina felt a tiny prick on her fingertip. The coin had drawn a microscopic blood sample for DNA verification. Machinery hummed to life beneath the floor. The stone table began to move, splitting down the middle and sliding apart, to reveal a staircase descending into darkness below. Catherine smiled. Welcome, Miss Vance, to the real heart of the Castellano Empire. The staircase was carved from the same stone as the table, descending deep beneath the mansion. LED lights activated automatically as they descended, illuminating the way. Your grandfather built this bunker in secret over a period of 10 years, Dr. Aris explained as they walked. He told the construction crews it was a wine cellar and private archive. Only a handful of people ever knew its true purpose. They descended what Evelina estimated was at least 4 stories underground. The air was cool and perfectly filtered. At the bottom, they reached a massive steel door with a biometric scanner. Dr. Aris gestured for Evelina to approach. Your fingerprints and DNA were added to the system 6 months ago when you underwent that routine medical exam. Do you remember? Evelina did. Victor had insisted she get a full physical, saying he wanted to make sure she was healthy. She'd thought it was typical grandfather worry. Now she understood it was part of his plan. She placed her hand on the scanner. It glowed green, and the steel door unlocked with a heavy mechanical sound. It swung open, revealing what lay beyond. Evelina stepped into the future. The bunker was enormous, at least 10,000 square feet of space that had been transformed into a state-of-the-art command center. Dozens of computer workstations lined the walls. Massive screens displayed data flows, logistics networks, production schedules, and real-time business analytics. The technology was cutting-edge, clearly recently installed, and it was all running. Live data streamed across the screens, showing the operations of every Castellano business unit in real time. This is incredible, Evelina whispered. A man in his 50s stood from one of the workstations and approached. He was fit, professional, with the bearing of someone used to authority. Miss Vance, I'm James Morrison, Director of Operations for Castellano Holdings. I've been waiting to meet you. He extended his hand. Evelina shook it, still overwhelmed. You run all this? I oversee it, but I don't own it. You do. Everything you see here, every system, every program, every piece of technology, is controlled by Castellano Holdings, the company you now own. He led her to the central command area, where the largest screens displayed the entire empire's operations. Let me show you what you've inherited. For the next hour, James walked Evelina through the systems her grandfather had built over 4 decades. It was brilliant and complex in equal measure. The logistics division that Julian had inherited, its value came from a proprietary routing algorithm that optimized delivery efficiency. That algorithm was owned by Castellano Holdings and licensed to the operating company on a renewable annual basis. Without it, Julian's fleet would be just trucks driving in circles. The manufacturing division Marcus inherited. It operated under production licenses for various products and technologies. Those licenses were held by Castellano Holdings. Without them, Marcus's factories couldn't legally produce anything. The real estate Sophia inherited, the actual property leases with tenants, the development rights, and the zoning permissions were all held by Castellano Holdings. Sophia owned buildings, but Castellano Holdings collected the rent and controlled the use. It's genius, Evelina said. He separated the appearance of ownership from the reality of control. Exactly, James said. Your cousins have very impressive-sounding titles and assets, but they can't actually do anything without permission from Castellano Holdings, which means they need your permission. And if they don't get it, then their businesses collapse. The logistics division can't ship products without the routing software. Manufacturing can't produce without licenses. Real estate can't collect rent or develop property without the rights controlled by your company. They're already starting to realize this. James pulled up recent communications on one of the screens, emails from Julian, Marcus, and Sophia to various department heads, demanding access to operational systems and getting responses that they lacked the necessary authorization. They don't understand yet, James said. They think it's a technical glitch or bureaucratic mix-up. But in a few days, when their business operations begin to fail, they'll understand, and they'll come looking for answers. What happens then? Evelina asked. Dr. Aris smiled. Then you decide what kind of person you want to be. You could help them, give them access to the systems they need, or you could let them fail, or something in between. Your grandfather left that choice to you. Evelina walked through the command center, looking at the screens showing the real-time operations of a billion-dollar empire, an empire she apparently controlled. Why me? She asked finally. I'm not a business person. I'm an engineer who quit her job to read to an old man and play chess. You're exactly who your grandfather wanted, Dr. Aris said. Someone who understands systems and how they work. Someone who values relationships over transactions. Someone who stayed with him out of love, not expectation. Someone who, when humiliated and thrown out, didn't respond with anger or revenge, but with quiet dignity. He was testing me. He was testing everyone. Your cousins failed by showing their cruelty. You passed by showing your character, and now you get to decide what happens next. Catherine appeared with fresh tea and sandwiches. Evelina realized she hadn't eaten all day. As she ate, James showed her more of the systems, explaining how everything worked, introducing her via video conference to key executives around the world who'd been waiting to meet the mysterious new owner of Castellano Holdings. You don't have to make any decisions today, James said, or this week, or even this month. Your grandfather ensured that everything would run smoothly during the transition period. Take your time, learn the business, understand what you control, then decide what you want to do with that power. Evelina looked at the silver dollar coin she'd set on the command center's main console. The coin that had seemed like the final insult was actually the key to everything. My cousins think I'm homeless right now, she said. They think I'm worthless. Yes, Dr. Aris said. How does that feel? Evelina thought about it. She thought about the humiliation, the wine on her dress, the laughter, the trash bag. She thought about Julian's cruelty, Marcus's greed, Sophia's contempt, and she thought about her grandfather, who'd loved her enough to plan all this, who'd seen in her what her cousins never could, who'd given her not just wealth, but the power to prove that kindness and loyalty matter more than ruthless ambition. It feels, Evelina said slowly, like I have a responsibility, not to destroy them. That's what they do to me, but to teach them, to show them that actions have consequences, to demonstrate that the person they treated as worthless actually had all the power they craved. Dr. Aris smiled. Your grandfather would be very proud of you right now. But first, Evelina said, I need to understand everything. I need to learn these systems, meet the teams, understand the business. I won't make any moves until I know exactly what I'm doing. If grandfather taught me anything about chess, it's that you never move until you see the whole board. Wise, James said. Then let's begin your education. Over the next 3 months, Evelina became a student again, but instead of engineering classes, she was learning the intricacies of running a global empire. She'd moved into the mansion, her mansion, though it still felt surreal. Catherine and a small discreet staff maintained the property and made Evelina feel welcome. She had her own suite with a beautiful view of the mountains, a private library, and access to everything her grandfather had built. Every morning she'd descend to the bunker, her command center, and spend 8 to 10 hours learning. James Morrison was an excellent teacher, patient and thorough. He walked her through every aspect of the business operations. She learned how the logistics algorithms worked, studying the code her grandfather's team had developed. With her engineering background, she actually understood it better than James expected, suggesting improvements that made the systems even more efficient. She learned about the manufacturing licenses, understanding the legal frameworks and regulatory requirements. She discovered that her grandfather had personally developed several key patents that formed the foundation of the production processes. She learned about the real estate portfolio, the development rights, the tenant relationships. She met via video conference with property managers, construction supervisors, and architects. And she learned about the financial structure, how money flowed through the empire, how profits were generated and distributed, how the entire system worked. You're a quick study, James told her after the first month. Your grandfather said you would be, but you're exceeding even his expectations. It's all systems, Evelina explained, and systems are what I do. It's just a different kind of engineering, social and economic instead of mechanical. She also learned about her cousin's situation, which was deteriorating exactly as predicted. Within the first week, Julian's logistics division had started experiencing technical difficulties. Shipments were delayed, routing was inefficient, customers were complaining. Julian had fired 3 IT directors, convinced they were incompetent, not understanding that the problem wasn't the staff, but his lack of access to the actual systems that made everything work. Marcus's manufacturing division couldn't produce anything without valid licenses, which had expired the day after the will was read. He'd tried to renew them, but the licenses were registered to entities he couldn't access. His factories sat idle, while he paid thousands of workers to stand around and wait for problems he couldn't solve. Sophia's real estate empire was bleeding money. She owned buildings but couldn't collect rent, couldn't evict problematic tenants, couldn't redevelop properties. She'd tried to assert her authority as the new owner, but every lease and development right was controlled by entities she didn't own. They're desperate, James reported to Evelina during one of their daily briefings. All 3 divisions are losing millions per week. They've been borrowing money to cover operational expenses, going deeper into debt. They keep calling this office, demanding meetings with whoever runs Castellano Holdings, but I've been stalling, telling them you're unavailable. How much longer can they survive? Evelina asked. Maybe another month. Then they'll have to declare bankruptcy or find a buyer for their worthless companies. Evelina had been thinking about this for weeks. She'd refined her plan, discussed it with Dr. Aris and Catherine, and consulted with James about feasibility. I want to buy them out, she said. Not the companies, those are worthless without Castellano Holdings' support. I want to buy their debt. Every loan they've taken, every creditor they owe. I want to acquire all of it through intermediaries so they don't know it's me. James raised his eyebrows. That's creative. Why? Because when they finally agree to meet with the mysterious investor who holds all their debt, I want to be the one sitting across the table. I want them to see that the person they humiliated, the person they threw out with a trash bag, is the person who now controls their entire future. Your grandfather would absolutely love this, Dr. Aris said. It's elegant, proportional, and perfectly just. Can we do it? Evelina asked James. Absolutely. I'll set up shell companies and investment vehicles to start acquiring their debt. Within 2 weeks, we can own every significant loan they have. Then we call in the debts and offer them a choice. Sell their worthless companies to us for a fraction of what they think they're worth, or face complete bankruptcy. Perfect. Begin. Over the next 6 weeks, Evelina's acquisition team, working through multiple intermediary companies so the purchases couldn't be traced back to her, systematically bought up every loan her cousins had taken. Bank loans, private loans, corporate debt, all of it was quietly acquired at slightly above market rate, with creditors happy to sell the increasingly risky debt to someone willing to pay. Evelina watched it all unfold from her command center, tracking each acquisition. She felt no guilt. Her cousins had chosen greed and cruelty. Now they were learning that choices have consequences. Finally, after 3 months of her cousins' businesses hemorrhaging money and their desperation reaching a peak, James made the call. "Mr. Castellano," he said to Julian, who'd been begging for a meeting for weeks, "the principal of Castellano Holdings is finally available to meet with you and your siblings regarding your business situation. She'll see you tomorrow at 2 p.m. "She?" Julian asked, surprise in his voice. "Yes, she. I'll send you the address." After the call, James smiled at Evelina. "Are you ready?" Evelina looked at her reflection in one of the command center's darkened screens. She'd changed over the past 3 months, not just in understanding the business, but in carrying herself. She stood taller, spoke with more confidence, wore her authority naturally. She thought about the woman who'd stood in the rain 3 months ago, wine-stained and humiliated, clutching a silver dollar and crying. That woman was gone. This woman, the one who controlled billions, who understood power, who'd learned from a master chess player, was ready to make her move. "I'm ready," Evelina said. "Let's finish this." The meeting was scheduled for a conference room in a prestigious downtown office building, neutral territory, professional setting. Evelina had rented the entire floor for privacy. She arrived an hour early, accompanied by Dr. Aris and James. The conference room was elegant, floor-to-ceiling windows with a city view, a long mahogany table, leather chairs, and state-of-the-art presentation technology. Evelina had dressed carefully, an impeccably tailored charcoal suit, her hair professionally styled, minimal but expensive jewelry. She looked every inch the billionaire executive she'd become. Dr. Aris helped her set up the presentation materials, charts showing the complete ownership structure of the Castellano empire, financial analyses of her cousins' failed businesses, and the documentation proving that Castellano Holdings controlled everything that mattered. At exactly 2 p.m., the receptionist buzzed. "Miss Vance, your guests are here." "Send them in," Evelina said. She turned her leather chair to face away from the door, toward the windows, so her back would be to them when they entered. She heard the door open, heard footsteps. Then Julian's voice, arrogant as always. "Finally, whoever this woman is, she's been dodging us for months. About time she—" He stopped mid-sentence. Evelina imagined he'd just noticed Dr. Aris sitting at the table, recognized him from the will reading. "Dr. Aris?" Marcus's voice confused. "What are you doing here?" "I represent the principal of Castellano Holdings," Dr. Aris said smoothly. "Please take a seat." Evelina heard chairs scraping. She waited until the sound settled, then slowly rotated her chair to face them. The expressions on her cousins' faces made the entire 3 months of preparation worthwhile. Julian's mouth literally fell open. Marcus went pale. Sophia made a small sound like a wounded animal. "Hello, Julian. Marcus?" "Sophia," Evelina said pleasantly. "Thank you for coming." "You?" Julian sputtered. "This is some kind of joke. You're the investor. You can't be. You had $1. You left with a trash bag." "I did," Evelina agreed. "That dollar was quite valuable, actually. It was the share certificate for Castellano Holdings, the company that owns and controls every operational system that makes your businesses work. Or rather, that makes them not work, since I haven't authorized your access to any of those systems." She activated the presentation screen. Charts and graphs appeared, showing the complete corporate structure. "Let me explain what you actually inherited," Evelina said. "Julian, you received Castellano Global Logistics. That sounds impressive, but what you actually got was a fleet of trucks, some warehouse buildings and employment contracts. What you didn't get was the proprietary routing software that makes logistics profitable, the vendor contracts that provide volume discounts, or the customer relationships that generate revenue. Those all belong to Castellano Holdings, which I own." Julian's face was turning red. "That's illegal. That's fraud. Grandfather couldn't—" "It's completely legal," Dr. Eris interrupted. "Your grandfather structured his companies this way 40 years ago, long before any of you were involved in the business. Everything is properly documented, registered, and legitimate," Evelina continued. "Marcus, you inherited Castellano Manufacturing. You got factories and equipment. What you didn't get were the production licenses, the patents, the technical specifications, or the supplier contracts. All of those belong to Castellano Holdings." Marcus was clenching his fists. "Why? Why would he do this?" "Because he was testing you," Evelina said simply. "He wanted to see what you'd do with apparent power. Would you be gracious, generous, kind? Instead, you were cruel. You threw me out with a trash bag in the rain. You laughed at my worthless inheritance. You revealed exactly who you are." She turned to Sophia. "And you inherited prime real estate, or so you thought. What you actually got were buildings. The leases, the development rights, the actual relationships with tenants. Those belong to Castellano Holdings. You own empty structures you can't use." Sophia was crying. "This isn't fair. We're family. Family," Evelina repeated. "Did you consider us family when you dumped wine on my dress? When you gave me 30 minutes to leave my home? When you posted photos mocking my inheritance on social media?" She pulled up her phone and projected screenshots onto the main screen. Julian's post. "Some people are born for greatness. Others are born to serve. Know your place." Marcus's post. $1 says the charity case finds a new sugar daddy soon. Child gold digger fail. Sophia's post showing Evelina wine-stained and crying. "When keeping it real goes wrong. Inheritance, karma. This is how you treated family," Evelina said quietly. "So, forgive me if I'm not particularly concerned about being fair to you." James Morrison stepped forward and placed 3 folders on the table. "These are the current financial analyses of your businesses. In summary, Julian, your logistics division is losing $2.3 million per week. Marcus, your manufacturing division is losing $3.1 million per week. Sophia, your real estate division is losing $1.8 million per week. Between you, you're burning through approximately $30 million per month." "We have loans," Julian started. "Had loans," Evelina corrected. "Over the past 2 months, I've acquired every significant debt you've incurred. Bank loans, private loans, vendor credit, all of it has been purchased through intermediary companies. You don't owe various creditors anymore. You owe me." She pulled out 3 envelopes and placed them on the table. "These are formal demands for immediate repayment of all outstanding debts. You have 30 days to pay in full, or we'll initiate foreclosure proceedings on all your assets." "You can't do this," Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. "I can, and I am. You have 3 options. Option 1, pay your debts in full. We both know you don't have the cash. Option 2, file for bankruptcy and lose everything. Option 3, sell me your worthless companies for pennies on the dollar and walk away with at least something." "How much?" Julian asked through gritted teeth. Evelina reached into her purse and pulled out 3 silver dollar coins. She placed them on the table, one in front of each cousin. $1 each, she said. "That's my offer for your companies. The same amount grandfather left me. Except unlike his dollar, which was actually worth billions, these dollars are worth exactly $1. The room went silent. Then Julian exploded. "This is revenge. Pure, petty revenge. You're destroying us to get back at us." "No," Evelina said calmly. "I'm teaching you a lesson grandfather tried to teach you your whole lives, but you never learned. Value isn't about appearances. It's about substance. You valued appearances, mansions, jets, social media posts. So I'm giving you exactly what your appearances are worth without substance. $1 each. I'll fight this, Julian threatened. I'll sue. I'll take this to every court. With what money? Evelina asked. You're millions in debt. Your businesses are worthless. Any legal action you take will be crushed by my legal team, and you'll end up even more bankrupt than you already are. Dr. Aris stood. You have 30 days to decide. Accept the offer. $1 for your companies. Or face foreclosure and get nothing. The choice is yours. Evelina stood as well. I want you to know something. Grandfather didn't do this to destroy you. He did it to teach you. He hoped that losing everything you didn't earn would help you understand what actually matters. Whether you learn that lesson is up to you. She walked toward the door, then paused. Oh, and one more thing. In exactly 30 days, Castellano Industries, under my control, will host a press conference announcing a major restructuring. We'll be explaining the new ownership and management structure. You're welcome to attend. I think you'll find it educational. Evelina left, Dr. Aris and James following. Behind her she heard Sophia crying, Marcus swearing, and Julian punching the conference table. In the elevator, James smiled. That was masterful. It was necessary, Evelina said. But it's not over yet. They need to understand completely, and I need to make sure this empire is rebuilt on better principles than greed and cruelty. Your grandfather chose well, Dr. Aris said. You're exactly the heir he hoped you'd be. As they exited the building, Evelina looked up at the sky, clear and bright, so different from the rainy night 3 months ago when she'd stood at the mansion gates crying. She'd come a long way, but the final lesson for her cousins was still to come. The 30 days passed quickly for Evelina. She spent them finalizing the restructuring plan for Castellano Industries, meeting with executives, and preparing for the public announcement that would change everything. For her cousins, those 30 days were torture. Julian tried fighting. He hired lawyers, but they discovered what Evelina already knew. Everything was completely legal. Victor had structured his companies brilliantly, separating operational control from asset ownership decades ago. There was no fraud, no illegality, just legal genius that Julian couldn't counter. His lawyers advised him to take Evelina's offer. $1 is better than bankruptcy, they said. Julian fired them. Marcus tried dealing. He approached Evelina through intermediaries, offering partnerships, profit-sharing arrangements, anything to avoid the humiliation of selling his company for $1. Evelina rejected every offer. The price is firm, she said. Sophia tried begging. She showed up at the mansion, though security prevented her from entering, and screamed through the gates that she was sorry, that they were family, that Evelina couldn't do this to her. Catherine informed Evelina of the scene. Should I have security call the police? No, Evelina said. Let her scream. She'll leave eventually. Sophia did leave. After 2 hours of crying and shouting got her nowhere. The debt came due on day 30. None of the cousins could pay. Their businesses were bankrupt, their personal assets mortgaged beyond value, their reputations in tatters as word spread through business circles about their catastrophic failures. They had no choice. On the morning of day 30, 3 envelopes were delivered to Evelina's office in the command center. Inside each was a signed contract selling Castellano Global Logistics, Castellano Manufacturing, and Castellano Real Estate to Castellano Holdings for the sum of $1 each. Julian, Marcus, and Sophia had taken the deal. That afternoon, Evelina held the press conference. She'd rented the ballroom of the city's most prestigious hotel. Business journalists, industry analysts, and major investors filled the room. At Evelina's request, her cousins had also been invited. They sat in the back row looking miserable. Evelina took the podium, confident and professional. Cameras flashed. Reporters waited with pens ready. Good afternoon, she said. My name is Evelina Vance, and I'm the majority owner of Castellano Holdings, the company that controls the operational systems of Castellano Industries. Today, I am announcing a major restructuring of the Castellano business empire. She activated the presentation screen behind her, showing the new corporate structure. Effective immediately. All Castellano business divisions, logistics, manufacturing, and real estate, have been consolidated under unified ownership and management. The separate divisional companies that previously operated semi-independently have been dissolved and integrated into a single, streamlined organization. Reporters were taking notes furiously. This was major business news. The Castellano Empire had been a fixture of the city's economy for decades. This restructuring will improve efficiency, reduce redundancy, and position Castellano Industries for sustainable long-term growth. We're also implementing new corporate values focused on ethical business practices, employee welfare, and community investment. One reporter raised her hand. Miss Vance, this is a dramatic change from how Victor Castellano ran the company. Why now? My grandfather, Evelina said, was a brilliant businessman who understood that true value comes from substance, not appearance. He also understood that the best way to teach lessons is through experience. This restructuring reflects values he held personally, but couldn't implement while managing family expectations. Now that I control the company, I can honor his true vision. Another reporter. What about the previous divisional heads? Julian, Marcus, and Sofia Castellano were named in Victor Castellano's will as inheriting major portions of the empire. Where are they in this new structure? Evelina glanced at her cousins in the back row. They were staring at their shoes, faces red. The previous divisional leadership received asset transfers in my grandfather's will, Evelina said carefully. However, those assets have since been sold back to Castellano Holdings as part of the restructuring. Julian, Marcus, and Sofia Castellano are no longer involved in company operations. What price did you pay for their divisions? A reporter called out. Evelina smiled slightly. $1 each. They were satisfied with that price. The room erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. The business story of the year had just been handed to them. In the chaos, Evelina saw her cousins stand and rush toward the exit, pursued by reporters asking how they felt about selling billion-dollar businesses for $1 each. She felt no satisfaction in their humiliation, but she felt justice had been served. After the press conference, James approached with updates. The stock market is reacting positively to the restructuring. Analysts are calling it brilliant. And we're already receiving acquisition offers for some of the divisions. We're not selling, Evelina said. This company is going to operate on different principles now. Profit matters, but people matter more. Grandfather understood that. It's time the business world did too. Your grandfather would be very proud of you, Dr. Aris said. Evelina looked at the silver dollar coin she kept on her desk, the one that had started everything. I hope so. I really hope so. 6 months after the press conference, Castellano Industries was thriving under Evelina's leadership. She'd restructured operations to be more efficient and ethical, implemented employee profit-sharing programs, and launched community investment initiatives that improved the company's reputation and employee morale. She'd also done something her grandfather never could. She'd opened the business to outside investment, bringing in strategic partners who shared her values and could help grow the company sustainably. The empire was worth more now than it ever had been under Victor's secretive management, and Evelina was getting regular calls from business schools wanting to study her restructuring as a case study in ethical management. But one piece of business remained unfinished. Julian, Marcus, and Sophia had disappeared from public view after the press conference. Evelina heard through various sources that they were struggling. No money, no prospects, living off the generosity of friends who were increasingly tired of supporting them. Evelina asked Dr. Aris to arrange a meeting. One final conversation, she said, to give them a choice. The meeting was scheduled at a modest conference room. Nothing like the elegant office where Evelina had revealed her control 6 months ago. This was intentional. She wanted this to be private, personal, not professional. Her cousins arrived separately, looking diminished. Julian had lost weight, his expensive clothes now hanging loose. Marcus looked tired and defeated. Sophia seemed to have aged years in months. They sat across from Evelina, not meeting her eyes. Thank you for coming, Evelina said. I asked you here because I want to offer you something. Julian laughed bitterly. What could you possibly offer us? You already took everything. I took what was never really yours, Evelina corrected. But I'm offering you a chance to earn something real. Not given, not inherited, earned. She pushed 3 folders across the table. Castellano Industries is expanding. I'm creating 3 new divisions focused on sustainable logistics, green manufacturing, and affordable housing development. Each division needs someone to build it from the ground up. The positions pay modest salaries, nothing like what you're used to, but they offer equity in the divisions if they succeed. Marcus opened his folder, reading, You're offering us jobs? I'm offering you opportunities, Evelina said. Grandfather gave you assets you didn't earn and couldn't manage. I'm offering you a chance to build something through actual work, to prove you have value beyond your last name. Why would you do this? Sophia asked. After everything we did to you? Because Grandfather didn't want to destroy you. He wanted to teach you. And because I believe people can change if they choose to. This is your choice. Take these positions, work hard, prove your worth, and rebuild your lives through merit. Or don't, and continue as you are. Julian was shaking his head. This is just another humiliation, making us work for you. No, Evelina said firmly. This is dignity, real dignity, earned through contribution, not given through inheritance. Grandfather left me $1 and the greatest lesson of my life. I'm offering you the same thing, a chance to learn that value comes from what you build, not what you're given. Marcus looked at his siblings, then at Evelina. What if we fail? Then you fail. But you'll fail while trying to build something meaningful, not while pretending inherited assets make you valuable. That's more honorable than what you've been doing. Sophia was crying quietly. We were horrible to you. Why don't you just let us suffer? Because that's what you would do, Evelina said. And I'm not you. I'm someone Grandfather raised to understand that power is a responsibility, not a weapon. I have the power to help you or hurt you. I choose to offer help. What you do with it is your decision. The 3 cousins looked at each other. Some unspoken communication passed between them. Then Julian spoke, his voice small and different from the arrogance Evelina remembered. I don't deserve this, but I'd like to try, if you're really willing to give me a chance. Marcus nodded. Me too. Sophia wiped her eyes. Please. I want to be someone worth respecting again. Evelina stood and extended her hand to each of them. Then let's start fresh, not as cousins fighting over inheritance, but as colleagues building something meaningful. As they left with their offer letters, Dr. Aris approached Evelina. You're more generous than they deserve. Maybe, Evelina said, but Grandfather taught me that the true measure of power is what you do with it. I could destroy them completely. But teaching them has more value. For them, for me, and for the memory of the man who loved us all, even when we didn't deserve it. She looked at the silver dollar on her desk, the coin that had changed her life. Grandfather gave me far more than $1 billion empire, Evelina said. He gave me the wisdom to use power well. That's the real inheritance. And that's worth more than all the money in the world. If Evelina's story moved you, please subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. We share powerful stories every week about justice, wisdom, and the triumph of character over greed. And here's something we'd love to know. Where in the world are you listening to this story right now? Leave a comment with your city or country. We have viewers from over 100 nations, and it's incredible to see how these universal stories of justice and redemption connect people across every culture and continent. Whether you're in Tokyo, London, Sao Paulo, Lagos, or anywhere else, we want to hear from you. Evelina teaches us profound truths about value, power, and justice. She teaches us that real value is never visible on the surface. When everyone saw $1, Evelina held the key to billions. When her cousins saw worthless assets, they actually owned empty shells. Grandfather Victor understood that people who only see surfaces will never understand substance, and he built his final lesson around that truth. She teaches us that true power is measured by how you use it. Evelina could have destroyed her cousins completely, left them homeless and broken as they tried to leave her. Instead, she taught them lessons, offered them genuine opportunities to change, and chose justice over revenge. That restraint, that wisdom, is what separates leaders from tyrants. Most importantly, Evelina teaches us that the people who mock you often reveal their own weakness, not yours. Julian, Marcus, and Sophia thought humiliating Evelina proved their superiority. Instead, it proved they lacked the character to recognize value when it stood right in front of them, and that blindness cost them everything. For anyone who's been underestimated, mocked, or told they're worthless, remember Evelina. Remember that the people who see your value are the ones who matter. Remember that patience and character will always outlast arrogance and greed. And remember that sometimes the smallest, most dismissed inheritance is actually the key to everything. Don't forget to comment below with your location. We love seeing our global community come together over these stories of triumph and justice. Thank you for joining us for Evelina's incredible journey from humiliation to empire. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that being underestimated is sometimes the greatest gift. It means your enemies won't see you coming until it's too late. We'll see you in the next story.